Hi, everyone. I'm Jamie Vaughn with How She Got There, a podcast by Nxt. And my guest today is Soula Parassidis, and she is the CEO of Living Opera. She's going to tell us how her life changed with a cancer diagnosis to a world of tech from the music industry. Hi, Soula. How are you?
I'm so happy to be here today. I'm doing great.
Good. I'm so glad I got your name right. I'm not going to show the blooper reel, but everyone know it was very hard, and I'm very proud of myself. So
You're great. You're great. You're great.
So you're new to Nashville, been here a couple of months now, and I am so excited that you're here. Can't wait for us to meet in person.
Yay.
But I want to talk to you about what you thought you were going to be when you grew up.
Well, the thing is, I always wanted to be a performer. And actually, I've got like photo evidence of it. I'm 18 months old, like singing. And I've been trying my whole life to get back to that singing technique that I had when I was 18 months old, because it's literally perfect operatic technique.
Wow.
But I actually initially wanted to be an actor. And I went to an audition, a local audition when I was 12. And I thought I was going to be delivering a monologue. And they said, "What would you like to sing?" And that kind of set me on the course that I'm on now. So I sang something and I said, well, this is interesting. You have like a really interesting voice and you're only 12. And so fast forward to, school and everything. I studied opera and never wanted to study opera, wanted to do acting, wanted to do musical theater, and just like kept on getting pushed back into it. And I was on that track to just be, a full-time opera singer, and got my degree in opera performance in the University of British Columbia. I can say the name, University of British Columbia.
Absolutely. We'll tag them in this.
Thanks. And the week after I graduated with my degree, I was diagnosed with thyroid cancer. And we were chatting about this. This is like the best kind of cancer you can get, which is like, no cancer is a good kind to get. And they told me, you only have a 5% chance of being diagnosed. Like, don't worry about it. It's probably a nodule. But like we said earlier, like I was in that 5%. And and it was terrible. And so for a young opera singer, it was like the worst thing that could happen because of the location of the tumor. And so one of the things that we agreed upon when we, I had to have a surgery, was that we would go in, see what was going on. And if the tumor had attached to like one of the crucial nerves, like the laryngeal nerve or surrounding, then close me back up and see what we could do about it. Because the problem is if you sever one of those nerves, you don't just, lose your singing voice, you lose your voice, period.
Right.
So, and I think people can already tell I'm a very animated person. They love to talk fast. This would have been a disaster for me. But also as a singer, I felt like all my dreams went away in like 1 second. So this thing I hadn't shared really very much, but I kind of went to bed for 2 weeks to think about life. I was 23 years old. That's sort of a heavy thing to contemplate. And I remember sort of emerging from that thinking, well, I don't know why this is happening, but I believe that life is worth living even without a voice, and I'll find something great to do, and I'm not going to let this get me down. And so I went through the surgery, and it was 100% successful, and that part was over. But the recovery was something I hadn't really anticipated, and that was quite challenging. And I lost a ton of weight, which, most people, I guess, would be like, oh, good. Although I don't know, if it's not healthy, then, you shouldn't want that. But anyway, just whatever. I couldn't support the operatic sound anymore. And that was really awful because even though the vocal cords themselves were fine, I didn't know what I was going to do. And I'm a dramatic soprano, which means I sing, big, dramatic, heavy music that requires a lot of elasticity in the voice. It requires a lot of support from the body. And I just didn't have the physical strength. And because I had lost the weight so quickly, I just didn't have the coordination anymore. And so I really felt like body knowledge, head knowledge, I still had everything that I had learned over the years, but my whole body awareness and body knowledge was like zero. So I had to completely retrain my physical apparatus, and anybody who's an athlete can relate to what that would be like, or any person that's had to rehabilitate any part of their body. So this was just like really tough. And I became, depressed, and it was really, really challenging. And the only thing that kept me going was this idea of getting back on stage. But at that point in my life, I had a very unhealthy sort of relationship with the stage, because it was wrapped up in my self-worth. It was wrapped up in my self-esteem. I only felt like people only love me if I do well on stage. And this is something I think a lot of performers or high achievers can really, really relate to, because it's all performance-based. And so this was, the only thing I had on my mind. And I pushed myself through recovery, but I was emotionally broken. So physically, I kind of regained some strength, and I got some songs together that I could sort of sing. And I went to Europe, but I went as this very broken person. And I was supposed to go to grad school in the States. That opportunity went away. And, I just thought, I've lost all this time. In reality, it was like a year. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm 24 now. What am I going to do? And I just pushed myself.
It's the entertainment world, and
right. And even in opera, it's the entertainment world, right? So it's like, you're like, oh gosh, I have all this pressure on me. And, which wasn't realistic or even real life, but I just put it on myself, and I wanted to get back out there. And so I thought, well, I don't want to do any more school unless I absolutely have to. So I'll just try and enter the career. So I ended up in Berlin, and through many amazing circumstances, which I will be sharing later on as we talk about what we're building in Living Opera. But I ended up there, and for the first year I was there, it was just like floundering, and you don't speak the language, you don't know what you're doing, you don't know a lot of people. And I did this one concert in someone's living room and was discovered in that living room, which is a whole other story that I haven't shared a whole lot. And from there, I was launched into an international career, singing opera a lot in Europe and also in Asia. And that's how I got started as an opera singer. But it just was a volatile start and really challenging.
So tell us what led to Living Opera.
So when I started my first gigs, you're on the road, and who do you meet but other singers? And so I married another singer who's a tenor, and we started traveling the world together. And his career was really interesting because there was a moment where it sort of like got elevated really, really quickly. And neither of us were ready for that. And for anybody, that knows what it's like to be married to somebody, especially who goes on like a meteoric rise, you're not prepared for that. And certainly not when, you start to get in the spotlight and people know who you are and all of that. And I mean, opera is still a relatively closed genre insofar as, it's not like, it's not like if you have like millions and millions of followers on social media and stuff, but it's like people in the industry started to know who he was, and that pressure really got to him, and he started to get major performance anxiety. And so that was really hard on both of us because, he's on stage and getting through the performances, but backstage he's suffering, he's not well and not enjoying the experience, which stinks because, it's a huge honor and blessing to get to perform for your job. It's like really right. So,
many of us, that's why many of us came to Nashville, myself included. And when it happened,
no, I mean, so here we are, we're living this lifestyle too, where people would look at it and go, wow, like I want to do that. It's like, I'm waking up in Zurich, and then I'm going to Rome, and then I'm going to Paris, and I'm going here. But privately, we were both really suffering. And it got to the point where he couldn't go on stage unless I was on the side of the stage. And this was brutal. And so I was like, hey, this is affecting your career. It's majorly affecting my career because I can't necessarily focus on my things. And ultimately you're not well, and that's what I care about. And if I have to pull both of us out of this business, like that's fine. We'll do something great. It'll be fine. We don't have to do this if it's not going to be amazing, and that's kind of how I operate with everything. Like if it starts to damage the people that I love or myself, I'm just like, why are we doing this again? It doesn't really make sense. So Living Opera started out of all of that pain. He recovered. We found a healthier way to do this job. And then we started talking sort of privately with our friends and colleagues and saying, have you been through this? And they said, oh yeah. And I won't say names but there was even, there's a major entity in our sector where we were told, oh yeah, like 80% of the people involved are on some sort of beta blocker or antidepressant or something like that to deal with pressure. And I was like, well, this is not good. This is awful. Because like I said, this is a wonderful way to spend your life making music and creating. So I thought, well, how can we bring health to this sector? And I just remember like putting a social media post up saying, would you like us to talk about our experiences to my followers and the younger artists that were following our careers? And it was an overwhelming yes. And so we just started doing these Instagram and Facebook lives talking about our experiences, but it's always pointing to some sort of a solution. And people can go on our YouTube channel, Living Opera, and see the genesis of all of that. It's all there, even to the point where it's like, I didn't know if you're going to do a YouTube video, you need to turn your phone this way. It's like, had no idea. And after a couple of months, people were still watching. And I was like, well, this is not what I expected. I thought we'd do this many times, And I then asked the audience again, like, I think this needs a name. And I said, I want you to help me name what it is that we're doing. And one of the colleagues said, I think it should be called Living Opera. And I was like, that's the name. Like, that's definitely it. And the name is special to us because living is living, right? But the word opera, we explained, it means actually like work, to labor in Italian. Opera lirica means like opera that you sing. So when we sort of translate that into English, we lose a bit of the essence of the meaning. So what I like to tell people is you might not engage with opera, but you're still a living work. Right. You're a living work. You're a living work in progress. And that's sort of like the ethos behind what we're building. So it started with these Instagram posts and just sort of us trying to be helpful. And then people kept watching the content. And I thought, why? Why are they still doing this? And then I built this little website on Wix to sort of hold all the content in one place, because I was like getting burnt out, like trying to manage all the different places. Like, okay, it's all going to be on here, and people were still watching. Why are y'all still watching this? I don't get it. Like, but there's a hunger for the content. And interestingly, this is pre-pandemic, so nobody was really using social media the way I guess everybody kind of seems like they are now. There's been a major push into the digital world, right? So we were sort of the first ones to do that. And even in classical music, people were like, why are you doing that? Are you pivoting careers? And I was like, no, like I'm just using the tools of the day. Like I have this smartphone. Why shouldn't I share? I mean, it's a huge privilege to be like, I'm going to go to Venice for voice lessons. It's like, people maybe want to see that. It's like, it's totally cool. And furthermore, I was also like worried about the fact that, we're seeing decline in audiences. And I was like, well, why aren't we using this to like sort of highlight what an interesting and frankly unusual lifestyle this is? So that was one of the motivations behind Living Opera at the start, but it was never to become a business, and certainly not to go into blockchain like we're doing now. And one of the things I like is that we're still, me and Norman and our business partner, Christos, we're still like fully into our primary careers. I'm preparing a role for a debut for next year and super into it. And Norman's out there doing the same right now with his coach. And Christos is still writing academic papers and doing a lot of interesting things. But we come together for this beautiful project that's bringing health and revitalization in the sector. And I think that's part of why we have this like energy behind it all the time, because we're infused by our primary work, and then we come and bring that into this baby that we're trying to bring to life. And anyway, I hope I answered your question. I think I went on several tangents, but it was I did the best I could. Okay.
Even if you did, I don't care. It was a great story. So tell me how you go from documenting your life with Living Opera to becoming blockchain.
Oh my goodness. So listen, during 2021, we were focusing more on like the educational components of Living Opera, but that's not me. I think I realized through the process, at the heart of it, I'm an entrepreneur. Okay. Norman loves to teach. He comes from a long line of educators, his mom, his grandfather, et cetera. But for me, I come from this line of entrepreneurs. And so it was hard for me to feel confident just doing educational resources, because anyway, I have one degree and then I went and did my career. So I was like, this isn't really me. Like, I got to find the thing that just like, I'm going to run after that and it's going to also excite me first, because otherwise, how can I pull other people into something I'm not even excited about? So I attended something called NFT NYC in 2021, which is a huge NFT conference in New York, Times Square, and it's like, and I walked into this conference and I was like, wow, what is this? Like the energy and like some stuff was a little bit weird, but I was just like, okay, this is like super cool. I need to know what this is. And I just remembered feeling like that same excitement that you feel when you're a performer, and you just those butterflies. But I was like, I'm getting these butterflies from being at a conference with technology I don't understand. Like, what is this? So that was sort of like my first entry point into it. And then the next month we went to Art Basel in Miami. And then like kind of just like interesting things started happening, because we'd already been having this conversation about how can we bring classical music into the blockchain sector. And we had met one colleague who was doing that with a choir. And I remember seeing his NFT collection, and again, having those butterflies, being like, this is the future, but I don't know if I fit in and how I could fit in. And I only want to do this if it's authentic. So fast forward to Christmas of 2021, business partner goes away home for Christmas. Norman is supposed to do his Carnegie Hall debut, which is super cool, but then he gets stuck and can't come. It gets canceled. He gets stuck where he is, I think, in New York, obviously. And then I'm just alone on Christmas. My family's in Canada. So I was like, man, this stinks. I'm alone on Christmas. But it gave me a lot of time to just sort of sit here and really ponder, like, okay, is this what we want to do? And so that's what I did. I just decided, like, it stinks to be alone on Christmas, but let's just, take all that energy and put it into what we're building. And I started to just do all this Googling, and like obnoxious Googling, like annoying, to the point that I was like sending like dozens of emails to the team being like, did you see this? And I ended up finding this through line in something called generative art. So generative art just means anything that has randomization in it, basically. That's the easiest way that I can explain it. Don't come out with blockchain people if it's like more complicated than that, okay? Just don't do it.
I'll just delete them. So it'll be fine.
Just delete them? Oh my gosh, you're deleted. So
we'll just delete them.
So I found, I remember Googling, what is generative art? Because I'd just been in Miami. Everybody's like, oh, generative art. I was like, I barely pronounced the word generative. I was so, and then suddenly this familiar name pops up, and it's Mozart. And I was like, what is this? And then I discovered this game called Ein musikalisches Würfelspiel, a musical dice game that was written in the 18th century, that has been attributed to Mozart as being the first example of generative art, so musical art. And basically the way it works is I'm going to super simplify this also for me, because I'm not a mathematician, but basically there's like two tables of musical fragments, and you can roll a dice to combine those musical fragments and make a new minuet. And it is one of the earliest examples of generative art, and it's extremely complex, with over a quadrillion different possibilities in these minuets. It's actually studied at like Cornell University and major Ivy League universities because of its complexity. And I was like, oh my gosh, there's a through line to classical music. There's a through line to academia. This is insane. Like I was freaking out. I actually had to create a whole new like file in my Gmail just to like house stuff I was finding and like annoyingly sending out to the guys while they were doing Christmas. And so this is how we started in blockchain. So I felt like finally I can authentically enter the space. And I was hoping that it would encourage people building in the space, that there is even like a historical sort of anchor for the movement.
You've got NFTs now, and you're in the blockchain. So
yes,
you know that you've got something exciting coming up in the next few weeks, releasing product. So tell us about that.
Okay. So, gosh, and I'm still learning. And by the way, there's an amazing blockchain community here in Nashville, and they host free events. And so I've been learning. I attended this whole thing on smart contracts. I'm like, wow, this is super amazing. And so just all respect to that community, because here I am, an opera singer, trying to understand this complexity, and just kind of understanding that I probably won't, but it's okay because I totally believe in the technology. So, and I'm excited about it. So we are launching our first full-scale NFT collection. It is called Magic Mozart, and it will do several things. So firstly, the name. Magic Mozart came from Mozart's final opera, The Magic Flute. So our portraits of Mozart are multi-layered generative art, all of the elements. If I were to sit down with an NFT holder, I'd be like, oh, well, this is Pamina's portrait from the Magic Flute, and this is the Queen of the Night's colored jacket. And so everything is very strategically built in the art itself, just to nod to the cultural, historical masterpiece that is the Magic Flute, with the hopes that somebody might be interested, maybe listen to the opera on YouTube, or even go to the theater. So that's one part and point of the whole collection. And the other thing we're doing is we're taking the musical dice game, and based on whatever NFT the person purchases, there will be like a number associated with that. And we're going to combine an all new minuet for that NFT holder. So that's just a fun little airdrop that we're doing, which I think is super cool. So people can feel like that's my minuet. And then in terms of the utility of the collection, so I think in 2021, we just saw a lot of projects emerging that didn't have anything that comes after purchase. And we understood, well, there's no way we're doing that. Doesn't make sense for us, at least. So we were trying to figure out what would make the most sense for us in our first collection, and kind of bursting onto the scene as, opera NFTs, classical music NFTs. So what we're doing is actually, again, kind of inspired by stuff that I went through early on in my career. So just started circling back to when I went through that cancer experience, I didn't know how I was going to start my career. And I should have gone to school here in the States. I'm from Canada. I think I said that, on full scholarship. But that, that went away. So I was like, oh my gosh, like, what am I going to do? And interestingly, I was approached by a local philanthropist who said, look, I've been following your story. I've been following your school career. Just really believe in you and your voice. And if you will write me a business plan about your next steps, I will help fund your next steps. And I was like, what? So I was like, what is a business plan? I had to Google it. And I found out, and he gave me what is essentially a micro grant. I mean, it's a small grant, but a huge amount of money for someone who's 24 and doesn't know anything. And it helped me to go to Berlin and launch my career. And this person helped me over the year. And so part of what we want to do with our collection is create a grants program that will help do the same thing, but at scale for our existing community, because the living opera community is all over the world. I didn't know there are this many singers around the world until we started living opera, but there are hundreds of thousands of singers, and we want to sort of help them get that leg up, because I know, like, there's other ones like me. I just know there are other people like me. They're going to take up the baton, and if they just get that little boost, like, they're going to be an amazing, force in our sector. So that's one thing we're going to do. The other thing we're going to do is create a Living Arts DAO, which will be sort of the governing body that will help distribute the grants, and for other projects that I can't talk about, help us sort of make the right decisions and guide us and aid us in the process. So we have some interesting people that have stepped forward and said they want to be part of that body. And I'm just really excited about it. So Magic Mozart is also for us kind of finding the people that will walk with us on the journey, which is why we wanted to start with a collection first that has more of a philanthropy angle and less like, you're gonna get these dividends by ticket sales of blah 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 opera. But like, we wanted to just be like, do you care about fine arts? Do you care about people? Would it excite you to buy an NFT that would help a young artist get their big break? Do you want to be part of a global community? That's more what we're doing with our first collection. And then other things that we're doing will have other angles that I'm basically like, man, if we pull that off, it's gonna be so cool. So, we're building with that heart behind everything we do. And I know for some people, they want a purely financial investment, and I totally get that. And we do too, but we also want to establish ourselves this way, because we just really care about seeing the arts community thrive. And it's just been a really tough 2 years. I won't get into statistics, but it's just been a really tough 2 years for the arts community in general. And we see this as a mechanism to just bring some revitalization and some hope, frankly.
So when does it launch and where can people go and purchase?
Right. It launches September 30th, and you will be able to go to the Living Opera website, which is www.livingopera.org, to purchase your NFT. And the first drop is 1791 NFTs. That's the year the Magic Flute premiered. It's also the year that Mozart died. And the premiere of the Magic Flute was September 30th. That's why we chose the name. We're also going to be doing an in-person event just to celebrate in Nashville around the launch. And so I'll be having more information about that soon. And it's just, it's just awesome. We're just so excited. And we're just really honored to do this part in the blockchain movement and Web3 sort of movement that's happening. And I think, you never know if things are going to succeed, or if your vision will work. But in one sense, for me, it's already done. Like it's already worked, because I just see the excitement behind it. And I see that people who would normally be, not involved in the arts coming alongside of us. And I'm like, wow, that person wants to be involved. That person wants to be involved. I mean, my mind is blown. So for anybody that's like hearing this energy and just sort of wants to know more, you can also just contact us through the website. That's what I'm getting at in a very long-winded way. Because we just love to meet people, especially local people. Like we came to Nashville on purpose because we believe in the city and what's happening here, not only in the music industry, that's the obvious part for us, but what's happening here in the technology sector. Like we're just amazed by everything that's working together in this place that is also just so beautiful, and people are so sweet. So yeah.
Well, we're glad you're here. So I have two last questions that I always ask everyone.
Okay.
What's the best piece of career advice you've ever been given?
Don't give up. I don't even have to think about that. Don't give up.
Yeah.
Just don't give up. Anybody who follows me on Instagram is going to hear that at least once a weweek, by the way. Don't give up. Because we all feel like giving up. Like, you know what? The whole world is set up to just like make you feel like you need to give up. That's just the way it is. Like, it is just so hard to be a human being. But if you just don't give up.
Yep.
Great things.
Completely understand. All right. Last question. What inspires you?
Oh my gosh. So you give me like an easy one. Now it's a hard one. Oh my gosh. Like everything, literally everything. Excellence it inspires me. When I see somebody in their lane, like it doesn't matter what it is, and I don't have to understand it. Like when I watch a chef create like an incredible dish, when I see somebody like knit a scarf, when I was talking to a dog breeder and I was like, how do you breed those dogs? Like, wow, they're just like, they're so beautiful and powerful and amazing, and they jump that high. You know what I mean? Like, anything where somebody's in their lane and thriving, I just want to be near that. I want to help that person if I can. Although, I'm usually like, what can I contribute to that? Then of course, like nature, beautiful sunset. I mean, there's just pretty much everything.
That's okay. It's a great answer.
but really just watching people thrive in their lane, and especially when it's not what they expected. And that's because I guess I relate to that, because yes, I still sing opera, and yes, I love it. But it's like, oh my gosh, and you also get to do that? Like, I get to do this? Like, what are you talking about? And so, I think that that's infectious, and it makes the world a better place. And so whenever I see somebody just going in and diving in, even to the point where maybe they're going to look silly, I'm inspired by that. I'm like, how did you do it? I want to know. So but I could go on and on, because I think there's inspiration in everything if you sort of have the mindset to be looking for the good thing. So that's my answer.
I love that answer. Well, I have had an absolute blast talking to you.
Thank you. I loved it too.
I can't wait to see what happens next for you. And I hope you get to the event in September for the launch.
Yeah.
But yeah, so let's have you back on a little bit later when we can talk about what next steps are. And everyone, if you're interested in buying the NFTs that she has coming out on September 30th, livingopera.org.
Yes. Thank you so much, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thank you.